Story 1. It is in my lungs. It is in my liver. It is in my kidneys. It is almost everywhere. My father. Story 2. Why won't they give him my heart? I have lived a good life and I do not want to outlive another child. Story 3. I hate you from someone I am willing to take a bullet for. Story 4. You need to get here now. Your father does not have much time. Story 5. My grandmother is talking about her long-deceased father. It feels like a long time since I have seen him. Story 6. I was sitting in an individualized education program meeting for one of my students and was reading over his strengths and progress for the year. His mother interrupted me halfway through and spent about 5 minutes talking about how different he was at home. She said he was easy to wake up in the morning because he was excited to come to school, that she could see him trying to be more social, and that he was helping out at home and always creating something. She said he was basically a different child compared to last year, and that she was very proud of him and grateful for the work we were doing with him. I am not an emotional person, but she moved me. Story 7. It is a cyst. Doctors told my mother on Tuesday that she has dementia. Devastating news for everyone. On Friday, the doctor called again after her magnetic resonance imaging scan came back. It is a cyst, an arachnoid cyst, not dementia. Something that can be treated and will not slowly torture and erase her. Story 8. I had not seen my biological father since I was 4. When I was 18, I went to a family reunion and was told that everyone had contributed to get my father round-trip tickets to come to the reunion. I was excited about the prospect of meeting this man whom I had no memory of and had seen only 2 pictures of. On the day of the reunion, I was as happy as I had ever been, but the rest of the party seemed off for some reason I did not understand yet. I had gone to the bathroom, and when I came out, I saw a picture hanging on the wall of all the family members. Among them was a picture of him in his early 20s. It was like looking in a mirror. I mentioned this to my grandparents and my aunt and then asked when he was going to arrive. It was at this point that they finally told me. He never picked up the tickets. Story 9. It wasn't said to me, but it was about me. My mother was diagnosed with cancer and given weeks to live. Her first words to my sisters were, "Please take care of your brother." She passed away earlier this year. Every time I think about it, I have to hold it together. Story 10. If they wanted to, they would. The first time I heard that, it really hit me hard. I stopped yearning for people who would never change or reciprocate, and it made me cry. Story 11. When my 4-year-old said, "But I don't want you and mommy to not be married anymore," while crying to me. Story 12. Where are you going to go? Poor you, you do not have any family anymore. Ha ha ha. From my abuser every time I tried to have a calm conversation about setting me free. My only family had already died before he changed, and he knew I was still raw. Story 13. I'm sorry, it's a fatal diagnosis. Scan of my second baby, when all the tests came back clear for why my first baby passed. I thought I was in the clear and got excited. I dissolved. Story 14. Mom is in the hospital. They think it is cancer. The biopsy is on Monday. The funeral was less than 3 weeks later. Story 15. I've never trusted anyone as much as I trust you, my husband said when he proposed to me. Nothing anyone else had ever said to me meant as much as that did. Story 16. He can't see without his glasses from the movie My Girl. I don't know how she acted that so well, but it's a deep and painful reflection of the thinking a child has around death. I remember my brother always used mechanical pencils when he was in school, and after his death, I was in class using one of his pencils that had ended up in my case. My quick brain processed the thought that I had to return the borrowed pencil, followed by devastation at that type of objective thinking. Your brain can't cope with something so final, so it finds other facts to hold on to, and it is true. He can't see without his glasses. It's easier to process that thought than he can't see anymore. Story 17. I am so sorry, ma'am. Spoken by the paramedic who confirmed that my mother had died in her sleep overnight. Story 18. I've never played it, but there's a quote from God of War Ragnarok that absolutely floored me. The culmination of love is grief, and yet we love despite the inevitable. We open our hearts to it. When the pyre is spent and you have gathered my ashes, spread them from the highest peak in all the realms. You will do this for me. To grieve deeply is to have loved fully. Open your heart to the world as you have opened it to me, and you will find every reason to keep living in it. I was in the thick of severe, life-changing grief and only just beginning to manage it. That quote had me crying, but it inspired me to keep going. Story 19. You deserved it, my ex said. I wasted 5 years of my life with him and dated him for 2 years. Context. He cheated on me the entire time. He said that because I worked in a male-dominated field, I would be tempted to cheat, and that was how he justified his actions. I never dreamed of cheating on him, and at one point, I considered asking him to marry me and move in. Joke's on him, though. I am now engaged to a wonderful man and am set to be married next year. Story 20. Of course you would die for your children, but can you live for them? Battling with depression as a mother hits extra hard. Story 21. Out for dinner with my dad and my foster sister after she visited following 15 years. A man my dad works with approached our table. He nodded to my sister and asked my dad, "Is that your daughter?" Sitting right across from him, he said, "Are you kidding? I could never have a daughter that beautiful." I decided never to share what he said with my little sister. It has been years, and he passed away in 2016, but that memory still upsets me. I don't care if your daughter is a bald hunchback, sir. Never say something like that in front of your child. Story 22. Grandpa died last night. He was 96. I was 43. It is always too soon. Story 23. The other day, I was listening to Rain City Drive, the band, and they have a song called Something. I don't remember the exact title, but it included the line, "I wouldn't talk to my friends the way I talk to myself." Story 24. I don't understand how you can have the most difficult life imaginable and still be the nicest person I know. It was said to me by my deceased best friend, who was the only one I opened up to at the time. That comment would not have meant anything coming from anyone else. Story 25. My son is on the autism spectrum and was not very verbal as a child. When he was about 6, we were shopping, and out of nowhere, he said, "Love you, Daddy." It brought me to tears, and I almost had to sit down because I was so overcome with tears of joy. I am tearing up now typing that. Story 26. When I was going through something horrible, my grandmother, who used to abuse me for years when I was little, said, "Sweetie, you are important. You matter." I used to think she hated me until she apologized for everything, and we talked about what had happened in the past. I love my grandmother, and she loves me. Story 27. Your brother had an accident and it does not look like he is going to make it. Story 28. When one of my friends told me how sad she was that the tree she hugged as a child was cut down. Story 29. When you look up at the sky at night, since I will be living on one of them, since I will be laughing on one of them, for you it will be as if all the stars are laughing. You will have stars that can laugh. Story 30. Get an abortion or walk out the door, said to 19-year-old me from my 28-year-old boyfriend. I am now 43, and this child is 23. I walked away and found my happily ever after. Story 31. Not one I heard, but my mother did. When the police came to her house and asked, "Are you the parent of?" It was about me. I had flipped my car. She told me her heart dropped to her stomach. She thought I was dead. Story 32. Let me go. I want to die. My mom, who was battling lung cancer, had gone into the hospital to have some tubes removed that were draining fluid from her lungs and abdomen. She wanted to go into hospice care and to do so comfortably. When she went in for the procedure, she had trouble coming out of anesthesia. They discovered signs that she had a mild stroke probably days before, explaining her diminished ability to speak. When she did regain consciousness, it was mostly one-word responses. One of those was pain. While we were in the emergency room, mustering all her strength, she looked at my aunt, then my dad, then me, repeating to each of us individually, "Let me go." After that, she just repeated, "I want to die," over and over. It was too much. I tried to be the strong one, to keep a stiff upper lip for dad like everyone expects. I'm considered the stoic one in the family, I guess. Truth be told, I don't think anyone had seen me cry before that moment. Story 33. She does not love you in that way. You would never have worked out in the long term. Story 34. When my mother said, "I'm taking a break from you," after I told her that I would not have her in my life because of her decision to live with a registered sex offender. Story 35. Came home from a night shift, and my fiancée did a bunch of little things to welcome me. She left a can of soda in the fridge to keep it cold and had some snacks out. When she said, "Welcome home," I just broke down because I was not used to that. Story 36. We have to start thinking about the fact that your mother probably is not going to come home from the hospital. Plot twist. I was the one who had to say it. My daughter and I cried together. Story 37. Why are you wasting my time with this? My mother said when I wanted her to be there while shopping for my wedding dress. Story 38. I asked my boyfriend why he was being so mean to me and why he wouldn't communicate with me about the things he's going through instead of just pushing me aside whenever things get hard for him. He answered, "I just love studying more than I love you." He is studying for a licensure exam, and I understand it must be difficult for him, but it still hurt. Story 39. I don't know what he sees in her. I was told my mother said this when she heard that I had married my long-term partner. We had been no contact for a couple of years. I thought I had become numb to her hurtful words, but it did make me emotional when I heard it. My cousin, who told me, and my husband, who was there, were both shocked. My cousin said he was livid when he heard it and was very apologetic for even telling me. Story 40. There was a day when our parents picked us up, put us down, and never picked us up again. Story 41. Mom, the doctor's office called. They said Dad has a mass in his nasal cavity that made a hole through his skull. Fortunately, it turned out Dad had nasal polyps and not a cancerous tumor, and the hole in his skull was some kind of anomaly. This happened in 1990. We lost Dad in 2016. Story 42. First meeting with my therapist, he told me that I was enough. That hit pretty deep and really broke me open. Story 43. I was free writing and in the middle of introspection when I wrote, "If I don't forgive myself, then who would?" At that moment, I just cried. Story 44. My sister told me my baby, who I had just given birth to, had been baptized. I already knew what that meant. I miss her every day. Story 45. I didn't break or cry at the time it was said, but please don't give up on me. This could really be something amazing, but I just need time. Please don't give up on me. I'll provide context below. I recently became reacquainted with someone from my childhood, the cousin of a lifelong friend. We met at a wedding after-party, ended up talking for hours, and she came back to my place. We've been talking for a few weeks, and every time we get close, she freaks out and shuts it down, only to miss me and want to extend the friendship again. She's never had a long-term relationship and has mostly known mistreatment and abuse from guys. She's been manipulated, used, and coaxed. I could go on, but I'd rather not. She's always shocked at any kindness I give her, and she said she really thinks she could see something with me but has too much going on. She's plagued with chronic illnesses and, despite being in her mid-20s, hasn't had a chance to grasp adult life. Her dad is ill and pending surgery. Her grandfather may have cancer. Her mom's best friend is on his deathbed. Her closest friend went through the grief of losing friends to a drunk driving accident, which she empathizes with deeply. She has a lot of anxiety as a result of past trauma. But despite all this, she's a wonderful person and so full of life. Just this week, she was at my place, and we decided to get food together. While out, paranoia hit her extremely hard, and we rushed back to my place after eating so we could get somewhere safe. The second we got home, she went to my room and completely broke down into possibly the worst panic attack I've ever witnessed. She said things like, "I don't know if I'm coming or going. There's just so much happening right now and I can't cope." And then turned to us and said, "It's just so intense, I can't do it," before crying some more. Then finally she said, "Don't give up on me. I know I'm hard work, but this could really be something special. Please don't give up on me. I held it together because I needed to be calm to help her through the episode. But later, when I was alone, I cried. Never before have I heard such an unfiltered cry for help. The whole ordeal made me realize I'm a lot more mentally stable than I thought I was, and I'm glad I was able to help her through. We've established an incredibly close bond as friends. I'm aware there's potential toxicity in how some of these events transpired, but I heard the cries of a girl who's accustomed to being used and tossed aside, and even if our relationship ends at friendship, I'm sure I won't be giving up on her. Story 46. Your husband has a non-survivable head injury. He was murdered by a complete stranger in front of my children because he was in my neighborhood to see a girl who broke up with him. Out of anger, the stranger deliberately aimed his car at my husband, who was on our lawn, then chased him with his car until he ran him over. He lingered on life support for 24 hours while everyone said their goodbyes. It was the worst day of everyone's lives, but mostly my children's. Story 47. I was 23 and on a psychiatric ward for the first time. My mother could no longer cope with me living at home. At the time, I was undiagnosed, which eventually became a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. I did not react well. There were many tears, confusion, and feelings of abandonment. It was the best thing she ever did for me. It still hurts when I remember it, but after a lot of therapy, I understood why she did it. She is still there for me 18 years later. Story 48. You're the strongest woman I know. My husband said this to me when I was in the midst of an anxiety crisis with panic attacks. I was afraid to drive and was late to work every day, if I made it at all. He usually left for work before me, but on this day, he witnessed me trying to function through shaking and crying. Sometimes just showing up takes everything you have. I reached that state by using my primary care provider for psychiatric medication. Now, I only use psychiatric doctors and nurses. Story 49. You've been slipping recently. Are you okay? I was expecting to get yelled at. Laugh out loud. Story 50. From my husband, about my mother, on the phone because I was out of town. They are trying to find a pulse. Story 51. It's your fault as well. You both wanted it. My mom said after I told her that her husband sad me for years since I was 9. Story 52. The rains have ceased, and we have been graced with another beautiful day, but you are not here to see it. Story 53. Kind of recent first-time father here. I never wanted children for most of my life. Turns out it is a good fit for me, and my little girl is the best thing that has ever happened to me. The sentence was, someday you will pick her up for the last time. That still puts a lump in my throat. Story 54. You didn't know how little she loves you compared to your sister? That was the moment I realized that my paternal grandmother favored my sister more because she inherited facial traits from her side of the family. I understood why my grandmother barely spent time with me, and when she did, she criticized nearly everything I did. I never understood why. Story 55. We have had to move your father to palliative care. We suggest you make plans to be here as soon as possible. 30 minutes before I am due to deliver one of the biggest work presentations of my life, 200 miles away from him. Story 56. My clothes are dirty, said my ex less than a month after our breakup when she came home wearing a guy's clothes to the house we still lived in together. We were together for over 10 years. Story 57. I was in labor on my due date. We cannot find the heartbeat. Story 58. My dad died when I was 8. At my college graduation party, my mom's friend said, "Your father would be so proud of you." I didn't expect that to hit so hard. Story 59. Hey sis, mom went up to heaven and she is no longer with us. The phone call I received in the middle of the night shortly after my mother was placed in hospice care for terminal cancer. Story 60. I know you just lost your father, but your mother was sicker than he was. She is not coming home either. Story 61. I love you because I have to, but I don't like the person you have become. From my mom. Heartbreaking. Story 62. I was never praised by my parents growing up. The one time my dad actually put his arm around my shoulders and said he was proud of me, I started crying. He didn't know what to say. but because I had never heard him say that before, I didn't know how to feel. He was always berating me and telling me how stupid and lazy I was for years. Even in my 40s, when my bosses praised me for my work, I would have to walk away and play it off jokingly because I could feel the tears welling up. That's why I always told my daughters that I loved them and when I was proud of them. I didn't want them to ever feel unappreciated. Story 63. Usually, when people ask how I am doing, the real answer is that I am not doing well, but I cannot say that because I do not have a good reason to feel that way. If I say, I am not doing well, they ask, why? What is wrong? And I have to respond, I do not know everything. So instead, when people ask how I am doing, I usually say, I am doing great. Story 64. He fell in October 1918, on a day that was so quiet and still along the whole front that the Army report confined itself to a single sentence. All quiet on the Western Front. He had fallen forward and lay on the earth as though sleeping. Turning him over, one saw that he could not have suffered long. His face had an expression of calm, as though almost glad the end had come. Story 65. Your crazy matches my crazy, said to me right before my wife proposed. Story 66. My parent called me an abomination after years of supporting them financially. Story 67. I'm never going anywhere. I'm always going to run for you, not from you. My perfect, sweet husband says a lot of things that make me break down in tears. I'm emotional, but he is also really sweet. Story 68. Your father was arrested for solicitation of a minor. I think my brain was trying to protect me at first because, although I knew what that meant, I had to ask my mom to clarify. When she explained, I vomited and then broke down into a sobbing mess. Thankfully, he was caught in an internet sting, and no child was actually harmed. I was 15, and up to that point, I was such a daddy's girl. I completely cut him out of my life at 18, and he died when I was 30. Good riddance. Story 69. We had been trying to get pregnant unsuccessfully for 2 years. I decided to give up because my body wasn't responding. I told my husband in October 2022 that I was going to have my intrauterine device put back in, and we were going to get a puppy. Fast forward to October 2023, we were at IKEA, and he asked why I had the intrauterine device put back in out of the blue. I explained that I never really felt like he wanted children. He is 5 years younger than me, and since we weren't making progress, I felt done. He said, I think it's time to have the intrauterine device removed. Let's try again. Today is our second intrauterine insemination. I got pregnant on the first, which was a miracle because we thought there was a chance I couldn't get pregnant. However, the pregnancy ended at 4 weeks. Hopefully today is the day. Story 70. 1 year of high school, I sat alone at lunch every day to do my homework, draw, or watch anime. I honestly preferred to be alone at lunch instead of pretending to get along with people I had nothing in common with. In the first few weeks, random kids would come up to me at lunch and all ask the same question, Are you okay? I would say, Yeah, I'm fine, just doing homework. And they would leave me alone. But again and again, different kids and even some adults kept asking me that same question. It finally broke me when a big group came up and said, Are you okay? You can hang out with us if you want. We just noticed you're always sitting here alone. I mumbled, I'm good, gave some random excuse to leave, and went to a secluded spot where I started crying. Why is everyone asking if I'm okay? It's making me feel like everything's not okay. From then on, I just sat in that secluded spot so no one would see me eating alone, and I was never asked that again. Story 71. My friend said, I have 10 minutes until the hockey match starts again. A while later, my friend asked her sister, How long until the match ends? I want to watch the last 10 minutes. I said, Are you missing the match for me? My friend, with a stunned face, replied, Well, of course. It never happened to me that someone made me a priority. Story 72. Hemingway's 6-word short story. For sale. Baby shoes, never worn. Story 73. A doctor who was not present during a traumatic childbirth for me came in with a surprising and cheerful voice. Well, it looks like you have been through the ringer. I broke down so badly that he walked out and called a new doctor. I was an emotional wreck after my first child. Story 74. My sister told me I was a burden just because I asked my dad if he could bring me a laptop from home for schoolwork. It really made me cry in my dorm room. Story 75. We cannot find the baby's heartbeat. I was at my 37-week appointment, and we were so close to meeting our son. This situation is very difficult. Story 76. Mom said, "You are a two-bit whore, just like your real mom." Daughter replied, "No, I do that for free. I'm a slut." Mom said, "You're the only person I know who had two moms and neither one of them wanted you." I was very glad she left the room right away. I did not want her to see me cry. I was 17 years old. 2 weeks later, I lived in a basement suite in Burnaby and I never lived at home again. I am 59 now. Story 77. One day you would give everything to see them little again. Being a parent to young children is hard. But I have to remind myself that these are the good old days I will reminisce about when the children are grown and distant. Story 78. This is why you do not have any friends. My older sister showed me a video of a puppy being thrown off a cliff, then got mad because I was upset. I was only in middle school and she was about to graduate from high school. Story 79. I'm not going to leave you to figure this out by yourself. I'm not leaving. Everything is okay. Story 80. Did you learn your lesson? My mother asked when I confided in her that I was sexually assaulted. Story 81. We are not renewing your contract after pouring myself out for a job. Schools do not value people who are very dedicated. It is like you work hard and get punished for it. Story 82. I got kind of loud at my friend yesterday, like, "Why would you try to do that?" Climbing a tree in the rain. He wouldn't look at me and asked if I was mad at him, then kept apologizing. I told him it was okay and I wasn't mad. He said, "It's okay if you are. I know I'm really difficult sometimes." I did start crying a little bit. He's so sweet, and I was just worried about him because he could have seriously hurt himself on the concrete. He thought I hated him over it. No one had ever not been mad at him for something like that before. Story 83. Carly, get back here. I was standing in formation at my basic training graduation when I heard my mother quietly yell, "Carly, get back here," to my daughter in the distance. I didn't see it, but that meant my wonderful little snot was walking. Story 84. Not something said to me, but something I said to my stepdaughter. "I'm sorry I never got you away from him when I should have, and right now there's nothing I can do to start trying." Him being her mentally abusive, manipulative, biological father. I grew up not knowing my dad, never met him until I was in my mid-20s, and I didn't want that for her because I knew how much that hurts and what it can do to you. What I didn't know was how much I let my own fears, feelings, and good intentions destroy her life and mental health. Story 85. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Jim Valvano. The 1993 ESPY speech made many men cry while watching a sports show. Story 86. I will love you forever. Forever and ever my baby you will be. Story 87. You are hereby sentenced to 22 years to life with the possibility of parole after 14 years served. Story 88. Sam, you were trying to save a wish for me? Critical Role Episode 114 Vox Machina. Oscar, there are 1,100 people who are alive because of you. Look at them. If I had made more money, I threw away so much money. You have no idea. If I had just... There will be generations because of what you did. I didn't do enough. Schindler's List. I am here now, she said at last. Molly laughed with her lips flat. And what good is it to me that you're here now? Where were you 20 years ago, 10 years ago? How dare you? How dare you come to me now when I am this? With a flap of her hand, she summed herself up. Barren face, desert eyes, and yellowing heart. I wish you had never come. Why did you come now? Peter S. Beagle, The Last Unicorn. Story 89. The days are long, but the years are short. This quote reflects the experience of having young children. Story 90. We are born innocent. Believe me, Adia. We are still innocent. Zizi, we all falter. Does it matter? Adia by Sarah McLachlan. I was going through a rough mental patch in life, and this song randomly came on the radio. I cried until I ran out of tears, then cried for 5 hours straight. Story 91. I got through the entire shooter drill without crying, Mommy, my 7-year-old. We are now in the process of moving to homeschooling, even though I do not believe it will be a better education. I just want them to survive. Story 92. The trend. My dreams are just dreams. I have never gotten something I wanted so badly before. Not even once. There is no more hope here. Story 93. Just wanted to let you girls know I love you. My grandfather's last voice message to us. He passed away on the 13th. I bawled. Story 94. I'm proud of you, kiddo, from my martial arts teacher. He is the only one in 2 years since I graduated college who has said he is proud of me. Not my dad, not my mom or siblings. Ron, my martial arts teacher. Thank you, Ron. I can't wait for you to see me get my green belt on Saturday. Story 95. I've been worried about you, said my little brother, who had been missing for 4 years, homeless and drug addicted, right after I brought him home. He was so skinny that he was skeletal and was suffering from massive infections, barely able to stand or move at all. Story 96. I'm not afraid. I'm just not ready yet. My dad said this when I asked him if he was afraid to die, a few weeks before cancer took his life. Story 97. I think the worst has happened. His gun is out, and there is blood on his head. My friend's girlfriend when she found him after his suicide. Story 98. I usually put my makeup on before heading to work in front of the television. I no longer get my favorite local news station, so I was watching cable news network at about 6:50 Central Time. Breaking news. Anthony Bourdain dead at 61. I do not know why I went to work. I was completely broken all day. I have experienced and been told other terrible things, but I remember that very specifically. Story 99. Being told that your mother wanted to have your brother but never wanted to have you because of a religious belief is painful. When my father told me that, I did not sleep well for a week. It is even harder watching your family change in ways you cannot fix. Never mind that I have 2 physical disabilities. When I told my brother this, he hugged me firmly and said, I care about you and I love you. Story 100. I listened to old tapes I forgot I had and heard my grandfather call my name. He has been gone since 1988. Story 101. I was about 7 months sober when I got into a stupid fight with my dad, and he blurted out, I wish I had something to be proud of you about. I have been sober for 4 years now, and I am proud of myself for that. Story 102. Dad was upset about something one of us children had done. I don't remember what it was. I do remember, however, him screaming, I never wanted for children, which, yes, for is a lot, but maybe bring that sentence to a therapist, not one of the 4 children you did not even want. Story 103. Sons of Gundor of Rohan, my brothers. I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West. Story 104. The brain damage is too severe. She is not going to recover. Story 105. Me. Is he okay? My mom. No, sweetie. He died. About my cousin, an 18-year-old male who was murdered in a terrorist attack. He was taking a nap against the window of a car when he was shot in the face by a Palestinian terrorist. Story 106. From my best friend. You are a miserable motherfucker. Story 107. A recent breakup. She said this. You are the worst human to ever exist. Whatever memories we had together, I am going to forget that they were with you and make sure to imagine them with another man. The love of my life. A relationship span of 2 years. Story 108. You are not even mourning her, said my mother's brother just months after she died. I was 11 years old and asking for therapy because I was already in therapy and knew I needed it. Story 109. I love you. Said by my mother for the first time in 7 months after her brain surgery that left her with an extremely limited vocabulary. Story 110. Goodbye everyone. Facebook post from one of my family members who was my best friend. I got a call from my brother minutes after seeing it, saying he had taken his own life. Story 111. From the cardiologist. I do not think it is your heart, but I am not going to dismiss you. To a 73-year-old female with chest pain. Story 112. I am so disappointed. I really thought you were better than this. These words were said by my abusive ex-fiancé. I was on the floor crying because he had just told me my best friend was pregnant with his child, which I later found out she had faked. He also said she was having a miscarriage. Instead of rushing to support her, I was devastated that he had cheated. Story 113. What's the bravest thing you ever did? Ask for help. From the boy, the fox, the mole, and the horse. I still have to see it, but that line from the trailer touched me. Story 114. The birthday song sung by the Curiosity rover. No one was around for its birthday. Story 115. I love you, Mommy. You are the best mommy I could ever have. You are my snuggle bug. My 6-year-old daughter said this. I grew up emotionally neglected by a mother I felt that way about at her age. Story 116. My name. I'm going to need you to be strong. My dad, 31 years ago, calling at 3 a.m. to tell me my brother had drowned. Story 117. When we opened him up, there was cancer in all organs. He had days to weeks left to live. The surgeon went to perform a simple gallbladder removal on my dad, who was 46 at the time. Story 118. I feel bad for anyone who has to touch you, including your family when they hug you. No one will ever want to touch you unless they have to, and even then, they will be thinking about how much they want it to be over. It still bothers me 10 years later. Story 119. My friend once told me, you are so full of love. How I wish the world could see. Story 120. One of my very good college friends texted me not long after he graduated to thank me for helping him through his math classes because he would not have managed to graduate otherwise. I was in the middle of a shift as a server when I received the message and had to take a quick break to compose myself. I worked as a tutor on campus and only received that kind of thanks once or twice in 3 years. Story 121. My battery is low and it is getting dark. Opportunity. Same little guy. Same. Story 122. After a while, I left the hospital and walked back to the hotel in the rain. Story 123. I'm sorry for cuddling you tonight. I was half asleep and didn't notice it was you, my ex said a few days before he moved out. I found out that he cheated with at least 5 people a few months later. If you read this, Simon, I hope you rot in hell and never find happiness. Story 124. Mommy, I'm scared. My daughter called me, barricaded in the cafeteria, thinking there was an active shooter at her school. Story 125. Your daddy killed himself. I was sitting at home brushing my 4-year-old daughter's hair on a beautiful Wednesday morning when I received a call from my stepmother. As soon as I said, hello, she screamed those words at me. It was so unexpected and out of the blue. I am still completely broken a year later. Story 126. For my child. I've got you, Mom. It is a beautiful sentiment no matter the age or context. Story 127. If a child isn't fed love on a silver spoon, they learn to lick it off a knife. Story 128. I will be really proud of you if you lose some weight, Dad. Story 129. Your brain tumor is non-cancerous but inoperable. So start making plans now as you most likely won't see your son graduate from college. He was 11, now 17. I am luckier than most given the time, and I know that, but damn it, I want more. Story 130. On the topic of death due to a loved one's passing with my 6-year-old, does that mean I'll die someday too, Mama? I can still hear his little voice asking that. Story 131. I am a man in my 60s. It was during a session with my therapist the year after my wife ended our marriage. It was our 3rd session. I had been composed up to that point, but when I tried to tell my therapist that I still felt married, I burst into tears. It was a while before I could speak again. Story 132. I need a wee. My dad's last spoken words to me in the days before he passed. He probably said it 100 times but couldn't understand he had a diaper on and had very little fluids in him anyway. The first few times he said it, I thought he meant it, but eventually I realized he was just repeating it over and over again. When I realized it would be the last words he would say to me, it broke me. I wish I could remember what he said before he said that. I'm forever grateful that my last unspoken interaction with him was a finger squeeze and tears in his eyes because I know what that meant. Story 133. You are ugly because you are bad inside, from my mother when I was 13 years old. I am in my 60s, and the sting has never worn off. Story 134. Your father is leaving us. I was 16. He had been having an affair and was leaving my mother, me, and my younger brother to be with the other woman. Tore my world apart and still hurts now. Story 135. I cannot find a heartbeat. Doctor speaking to me and my husband before the birth of my stillborn daughter. Story 136. Don't lean on me for support. Lean on your family. These were the words spoken when my brother died, from the man who would become my husband and is now my narcissistic ex-husband. Story 137. The fact that nobody loves me so much that I have to watch mommy autonomous sensory meridian response to simulate someone actually being there for me. Story 138. The feelings were different. I think we should just go back to being friends. Story 139. The first time my sister-in-law used the phrase "my son" in a sentence was when she was pregnant with her first child. Story 140. It's from a song, The A-Team by Ed Sheeran. It's too cold outside for angels to fly, to fly, to fly, angels to die. The song is about a young woman addicted to cocaine who dies from her addiction. My mother died the same way when she was 33 and I was 3. That song always breaks me. Story 141. Thus ended Beleg Strongbow, truest of friends, greatest in skill of all that dwelled in the woods of Beleriand in the elder days, at the hand of him whom he most loved. That grief was carved on the face of Turin and never faded. Story 142. He is in a lot of pain, and there is nothing we can do to save him. The feeling of having all of my hope crushed was not even half as bad as what I had to do next, or the hole it left me with. Story 143. Your father has prostate cancer and has about 5 months to live. Story 144. Me at 16, deeply depressed, and in a moment of desperation, voicing my darkest thought. Maybe it would be easier for you if I were gone. My stepmother. Maybe it would. Story 145. This is the call you have been dreading for 17 years. She is gone. Story 146. You can see your mother tomorrow in the morgue. That sentence just broke me. It's what the on-call doctor told me when he called after my mother passed in February. Story 147. Probably my mother being drunk and telling me she wasted her years on me when I was 16. She was a narcissist and an alcoholic at the time, so I was used to the constant yelling matches, but that time broke me. Story 148. When my sister told me mom's last few words were, "Who's going to take care of my name? I am one of 5 children," but I was on her heart. I lost it. Story 149. Having my father's neighbor call my now brother-in-law to say, "Your father is dead." Story 150. I want to go home, said my then wife after we had spent 2 years going through the immigration process so we could get married. I had also spent 2 years financially supporting her through the pandemic. I spent 8 years shaping my life around her. One day, she came home from work, sat me down and said, "I want to go home." Story 151. You are terrible. I asked my now ex why we were not intimate anymore, and feeling devastated, I began to sob. He added, "The truth hurts, doesn't it?" Story 152. I'm proud of you. It was the first time anyone had told me that. I was 16. I had been trying so hard to have perfect grades so my mom would finally acknowledge me positively. She was not even the one who told me she was proud of me. She has never said those words to me and will probably never say them. Story 153. They found Tommy. Tommy is my uncle's brother. He is a wonderful man and a Vietnam veteran in the early stages of dementia. One night in 2021, he got in his car to go to Walmart and was missing for 7 months. A nonprofit group called Adventures with Purpose found his car at the bottom of a lake. We think he got lost and drove off the boat ramp. My mom called and told me when they found him. Story 154. There was nothing you could do. I had been in a car accident 6 months earlier in which a man in the other car died on impact, but for some reason, I had only the faintest memory of the seconds leading up to the crash. The crash occurred in an area where the coroner's court was very behind on inquests, and police investigators do not release the results of their investigations until the inquest. I spent 6 months not knowing exactly what had happened and feeling like I had killed someone. It turned out that the driver of the other car had spun out and ended up sideways across my lane. The senior crash investigator said that under those circumstances, I could not have physically gotten my foot on the brake pedal. Story 155. I dislike you. The only thing you have going for you is that I don't have anywhere else to go. Story 156. I touch my own skin, and it tells me that before there was any harm, there was a miracle. Adrienne Marie Brown. Story 157. A week before my mother died, my father was in the final stages of heart failure. My ex said, "You forgot my birthday." Story 158. The cancer returned. The doctor's prognosis is 4 to 6 months. Back in January, from my dad, not even a week before my birthday. His health deteriorated significantly, and he passed away near the end of February. It is still raw and hard to believe he is really gone. Story 159. Watching Bluey with my little one. There is a part where the mom says, "I am always there for you, even if you cannot see me, because I love you." It hits me with the realization that I will not always be there for my child and affects me every single time. Story 160. I'm glad we tried again. My wife told me this, hugging me from behind 6 months after we ended our separation. We were at Walt Disney World with our children, watching them play near our room at Shades of Green. I feel a little emotional thinking about it now. Story 161. What are your Thanksgiving plans? I lost my father in May, and it was his favorite holiday. I couldn't celebrate at my house as planned last year because I was recovering from a car accident, and he was disappointed not to be with us. I am heartbroken knowing he will not be at the table this year. Story 162. I do not feel anything for you anymore. It has been about a year already. Story 163. I don't know if I want to have children because I am afraid I will get tired of them the same way your parents got tired of you. Story 164. Just because they are together does not mean they are actually part of their family. My husband said this when I mentioned that I have a very large family because my grandmother's partner brought many children into the family. He did not realize that my parents-in-law are like parents to me as well. I do not have contact with my parents anymore due to various reasons, and he really hurt me with it. Story 165. Your sessions always really drag down my mood and make me very sad, said my therapist when I was 16. I felt so guilty about burdening her that I never opened up again and pretended things were better than they were. When I was 18, I planned to commit suicide. I wrote letters to the people I loved most, had the day and time chosen, and was ready to act. Beforehand, I went to the bakery to give myself one last treat. The lady behind the counter smiled and said she would give me 2 for the price of 1 because I looked like I deserved it. That kindness made me burst into tears, and honestly, it might be why I am still alive. Also, every time someone has told me that a loved one died or shared a diagnosis with me. Story 166. I tell people I do not want to have more children with you because you are a bad mother. While I do all of the childcare for the one child we have, take care of his mother, do all household work, work full-time, and forgive him repeatedly for his selfishness. Story 167. I told my mother, "You do not love me anymore." She said, "That is right, I do not." I was 10. Story 168. My mom was in hospice probably 2 days before she passed. She looked at me and said, "I'll miss you." Instant tears. Story 169. Blessings from above. My mom passed away last year. One day, while cleaning my apartment, I found the last birthday card she sent me. She signed it with blessings from above. Story 170. It was not just a sentence. It was a complete statement. I am sick of you. I wish you had never been born. My mother told me that one day while angry about her life choices. I was 9 years old. Story 171. I come from a pretty spiritual family. My ex-boyfriend had just violently assaulted me for the first time. We were still living together, and I didn't have the option to kick him out. The mental torture he put me through was leading me to a breakdown. I tried to spend less time at home and went to my mom's a lot. One day, I walked through the door and just started sobbing. She hugged me and said, "I've been praying to your dad." I told him that he owed us. He put me through this pain, and now he needs to protect his daughter. For context, my dad was a really troubled person who dealt with his childhood trauma in a harmful way. He was very abusive to my mom. I hadn't seen him since I was about 7, and he passed away a few years ago. Her saying that broke me. Story 172. Don't tell your father. He will just think you are promiscuous. After I told my mother I had just been assaulted by 4 men at a college party, I was looking for help from her, but she shamed me and told me to keep quiet. Story 173. I'm sorry to tell you, but we couldn't get his pulse back. I'm so sorry for your loss, ma'am. This was after my husband overdosed and paramedics took over CPR for me. My whole world came crashing down realizing that I have to raise my 2 young children alone. But nothing broke me like having to tell my 9-year-old son that his dad died. Story 174. I can't believe you are doing this to me. I hate you. From my mother with advanced stage Alzheimer's disease when I took her to the care home. That and almost every interaction I had with her for the final 10 tormented years of her life. Story 175. I regret saying that to my mother when we got into an argument. I was 17. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.